took the night janitor job at Fairlane Hospital because the pay was good and the night shifts didn't bother me. The place was half shut down for Christmas week. Staff skeleton crew, most departments empty after midnight. My zone was the basement level, record storage, maintenance hallways, the old radiology lab nobody used anymore. It was the kind of place where every sound got swallowed into concrete and you couldn't tell if something was far away or right behind you. The first few nights were nothing. Vacuum, trash, wipe down the break room, mop the radiology hallway, lock up, leave. The only people I ever saw were 2 night nurses upstairs, and even they barely spoke. The basement itself was always colder than every other floor. Even with gloves, the mop handle felt like metal pulled from a freezer. But routine kept me sane. On December 23rd, around 1:40 a.m., I pushed my cart toward radiology. The hallway lights were motion activated, always slow to turn on. When I rounded the corner, I saw a dark shape at the end. Someone standing still in the hallway, facing the far wall. I froze with one hand on my cart. The figure didn't move. I took a few steps forward, and the lights flicked on in a wave from my end to his, revealing a man in dark scrubs I didn't recognize. He stood with his back to me, hands loose at his sides. "Hello?" I called. "You can't be down here. This department is closed." He didn't turn around. He didn't acknowledge me, just stood there. I swallowed and stepped closer. "Sir, do you need—" He moved, not turning, not stepping. He just tilted his head slightly, enough to show he'd heard me. Something about the angle felt wrong, like he didn't tilt it out of confusion, but out of irritation. I took a slow step back. "I'll get security," I said, forcing a steady tone. That's when he turned his head, slow, deliberate, and looked at me over his shoulder. No expression, no reaction, just pale eyes in a dim hallway. Then, without warning, he walked into the old radiology room and disappeared behind the door. I waited 2 seconds tops before backing away and grabbing my radio. "Security, basement hall, someone's in a restricted department." Static. I tried again. "Unit 4, come in." More static. I walked faster. When I got back to the main basement intersection, the light overhead flickered. The temperature felt colder. That's when a soft metallic latch clicked behind me. The radiology door, the one he'd gone through. I turned, expecting maybe he'd changed his mind. Instead, the door I'd seen him enter was now half open again. He was standing in the doorway, completely still, like he hadn't moved at all since I last saw him. Except now he was facing me, directly. Hands still by his sides, but posture different, straighter, alert, ready. I felt my pulse thudding in my jaw. "Sir, you have to stop," I said, voice cracking. He didn't blink, didn't breathe visibly. Then he stepped forward. One step, slow, heavy. The hallway light buzzed. I backed up instantly. He took another step. I grabbed my cart and shoved it between us, just to put something in his path, then turned and ran. The wheels of the cart squeaked violently as I sprinted up the sloped hallway toward the stairwell. He didn't run, but I could hear his footsteps, steady, controlled, closing in faster than they should have for how slow they sounded. I reached the stairwell, yanked the door open, flew inside, slammed it shut behind me, and locked it from my side. His footsteps stopped right outside. The metal door rattled once, then again, harder, then silence. I held the handle with both hands, listening, terrified he'd push through, but nothing happened. After maybe 20 seconds, I heard footsteps fade down the hallway. Not fast, slow, like he wasn't leaving, like he was circling. I bolted upstairs to the security station on the first floor. The guard on duty, some older guy named Reeves, looked up annoyed like I'd interrupted his break. "Someone's in the basement," I said, breathless. "Scrubs, no badge, following me. He was in radiology. Slow down," he muttered. "Probably a float nurse who got lost." "No," I snapped. "This guy wasn't lost." Reeves raised an eyebrow, but followed me downstairs with his flashlight. When we got to the basement, the hallway was empty. Radiology door closed. No footprints, no dirt, nothing. Reeves poked into the room with me behind him. The place was exactly as it always was. Equipment draped in sheets, unplugged CT scanner, empty storage shelves, no man. No sign anyone had stepped on the dusty tile. "Nobody here," Reeves said. "You probably saw your reflection." I wanted to punch him. I went home angry and shaken. On Christmas Eve, I almost called out, but I needed the shift pay. I kept to the upper floors at first, terrified of going back down to the basement. Around 12:30 a.m., I finally made myself take the elevator down. The hallway was normal again, quiet, stale, cold. I forced myself to get through radiology first, just so I'd stop thinking about it. I pushed open the radiology door. Everything looked untouched, same draped machines, same dusty counters. I crossed the room, checking corners, trying to prove to myself I'd overreacted last night. Then I noticed something wrong. A set of footprints crossed the dust on the floor near the back wall. Not shoe prints, sock prints, the kind where you can see each toe shape pressed into the grime. They went behind a rolling equipment shelf. Slowly, I reached out and pushed the shelf aside a few inches. On the wall behind it was a smear. Not blood, dust wiped clean in the shape of a handprint, smeared downward like someone had braced themselves. I backed up fast, too fast. My heel hit something soft. I spun around. The man. Sitting on the floor behind one of the covered machines. Knees pulled up, hood down. Now, hair greasy, eyes open and staring straight ahead like he'd been waiting for me. His head snapped toward me fast enough that I yelped and crashed into the equipment shelf. He didn't stand. He crawled. Fast. Not like a patient in pain, like someone who'd practiced moving low and silent. I bolted for the door. He scrambled after me, hands and feet slapping tile. I reached the hall, slammed the door shut, and felt him collide with the other side. The impact shook the frame. I shoved my cart in front of the door and sprinted to the elevator. I didn't risk the stairwell, too many blind corners. I hammered the elevator button. Behind me, I heard the radiology door creak. Metal hinges whining under pressure. "Come on," I whispered at the elevator. Ding! The doors opened. I shoved my cart aside and jumped in. As the doors closed, I saw him turn the corner at the end of the hallway, running full speed, barefoot. Eyes locked on me. The doors shut before he reached the elevator. I burst into the first floor and ran to security again. Reeves radioed back up immediately this time and went down with 2 other guards. They searched the entire basement for over 30 minutes. Found the footprints. Found the wiped wall. Found the shelf I rammed into. Found no man. No badge logs showed anyone clocking in. No staff matched his description. No patients were missing. No cameras covered radiology. No alarms tripped. Nothing explained anything. What makes it worse is what happened the next night. Christmas night. They assigned 2 guards to patrol the basement constantly. I never saw the man again. He never returned. The doors stayed closed. No footprints. No wiped dust. No sounds. Nothing. He didn't get caught. He didn't try again. He was simply gone. Like whatever he wanted, he decided not to bother anymore. And every time I push my cleaning cart past the radiology hallway, I can't stop imagining him still down there somewhere, pressed against a wall, holding his breath, deciding whether I'm worth coming back for. Fecka took the night janitor job at Ridgeview High because I needed rent, not because I liked empty buildings. On paper, it was easy. 10 p.m. to 4 a.m., 5 nights a week, clean 3 floors, lock everything, go home. No students, no teachers, no drama. The head custodian, Curtis, walked me through everything my first night, where the chemicals were, how not to piss off the alarm system, which teachers would complain if a single trash bag wasn't tied the right way. He pointed to the PA panel in the main office and the 4 security monitors in a little room behind the cafeteria. "If you hear anything weird, check cameras first," he said. "If you see anything weird, call me. If it feels wrong, leave. The school will still be here tomorrow." I thought he was just being dramatic. For the first few weeks, it was exactly what you'd expect. Buffing the halls, emptying trash, scrubbing graffiti out of bathroom stalls. I'd work one floor at a time and save the gym for last. The building at night felt bigger than it did during the day, like the silence stretched the halls out. But it was just a building, old vents, noisy heat, motion lights that took too long to wake up. The first time I noticed something off, it was so small that I almost convinced myself I dreamed it. I was on the 3rd floor, the history wing, working my way down the hall. Same routine every night. Unlock, empty trash, quick wipe of surfaces if needed. Lights off, door locked, move on. I hit room 305, dumped a heavy trash can full of worksheets and fast food bags into my barrel, knotted the liner, and mentally checked it off. When I reached the end of the hall, the barrel didn't feel as heavy as it should. I frowned, turned around, and walked back. The lights in 305 were on. I knew I'd shut them. The door was unlocked. I knew I'd turned the key. I stuck my head in. The trash can in the corner was full again, down to the same crumpled "thank you" bag on top, logo facing the same way. Not similar, identical. Same torn corner, same coffee-stained napkin folded under the rim. For a second I just stood there, listening to my own breathing. Then I dumped it again, tied the bag as tight as I could, and pressed it down into the barrel, watching it stay there, like that would prove something. I turned the lights off, locked the door twice, and told myself I'd just mixed rooms up in my head. Night work makes time weird. I shrugged it off. A week later, I couldn't shrug anything off. It was snowing hard outside, one of those storms that makes everything sound padded and far away. Curtis had gone home at midnight, like always. I'd already finished the 1st and 3rd floors and was pushing my cart down to the gym. The main hall was dead. Even the exit sign seemed dimmer. I propped one of the gym doors open with my cart and hit the closest row of lights. They came on in a narrow strip, leaving the far half of the court and the bleachers buried in shadow. The air always felt different in there at night, colder, like the heat didn't bother reaching that far. I grabbed the wide dust mop and started at one end of the lit area, pushing it down the court in long passes. Halfway down, I felt that prickle between my shoulder blades, the one you get when someone stands behind you a little too close. I turned around. Just my cart, the open door, and the empty hallway beyond it. No movement, no sound. I told myself to stop being a coward and kept sweeping. I'd just reached the free throw line when the bleachers made that sound. Not the soft, settling creak I'd heard 100 times, but the heavy grind they make when they're being pulled out. Metal scraping metal, echoing in the dark. It came from the far wall, the side the lights didn't reach. The noise went on for 3 or 4 seconds, like somebody had gotten them halfway out and stopped. I froze, mop handle digging into my palm. Hello? My voice bounced around the rafters and came back small. The grinding stopped. No footsteps, no voices. The bleacher wall stayed a solid black block, nothing sticking out. I backed toward the door without taking my eyes off that side of the gym and stepped into the hallway, suddenly very aware that I was the only person in the building. Curtis's voice in my head. If you hear anything weird, check cameras first. Fine. Cameras. The security room behind the cafeteria felt even more cramped than usual. 4 monitors glowed in the dark, each split into a grid of feeds. I rewound the gym camera, watching myself wheel the cart in and start to sweep. At the moment, I remembered the bleacher noise. Nothing moved on screen. The bleachers didn't twitch. The lights didn't flicker. What did move was the door at the far corner of the gym, the exterior one that led straight out to the staff lot. On the footage, the metal push bar on that door depressed inward, slow and steady, like someone inside leaned on it with their full weight. The door flexed, but didn't open. The bar held for 3 seconds, then released, door snapping back. From my angle in the real gym, I wouldn't have seen that corner without turning around. I hadn't heard the bar, only the bleachers. My mouth went dry. I sat there watching the bar flex and release on loop until I realized I was just making myself sick. I told myself it was wind, or a bad seal, or old hinges. I finished my shift with my headphones out and my head on a swivel. A couple nights after that, the school stopped pretending it was random. It was around 1 a.m. again. Snow still on the ground, parking lot empty. I was on the first floor, math wing this time, running a mop along the tiles. No earbuds, just the faint hum of the heaters and the click of my keys at my hip. Halfway down the hall, the PA system popped on. It's a tiny sound, but you know it if you work under it long enough. A soft click, then a wash of static from all the ceiling speakers at once. Every classroom, every hallway, every corner, it makes the air feel wired. I stopped moving and looked up at the nearest square speaker. No red light, no indicator. "Curtis?" I called down the hall, like he'd magically appear. Nothing. Just that low crackle. "Hello," I said, mostly to hear something human. 2 beats later, my own voice came back through the speakers. "Hello?" Same word, same hesitation, but off. Slowed just enough that the vowels dragged, like the building was trying to imitate me from memory. Hearing yourself float above you from 20 different spots, slightly warped, is hard to describe. It didn't sound recorded, it sounded alive. I stood there under the speaker until the static cut off and the hallway went dead again. I wanted to believe it was a feedback glitch. I made myself start mopping again, heart still pounding in my throat. I didn't get far. The PA clicked on again, sharper this time. No static now, just breathing. Slow even, too close to the microphone. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. It spread down the hallway, thin and dry, like whoever was doing it had been breathing into that mic for a long time. I didn't move for a few seconds, just listened to it fill up the corridor. Then I turned and walked toward the main office, forcing myself not to run. The office was dark. My reflection stared back from the glass of the principal's door. I flicked the lights, climbed behind the secretary's desk, and looked at the PA panel. Every switch was down, no button lit. The breathing was louder in here, like the ceiling was right on top of my head. "Enough," I snapped, not sure who I thought I was talking to. The breathing stopped instantly. Cut. No fade. The silence that dropped after it was somehow worse. I stood there, waiting, muscles buzzing, eyes on the dead panel. The speakers crackled softly, like someone clearing their throat. Then a voice came through, and this time it didn't even try to hide whose it was. Mine. Flat, drained of any emotion, but undeniably mine. "Go to the gym," it said. 3 words, clean and clear in my own tone, rolling out over the empty front office and down the hall. The PA clicked off. I backed away from the panel, suddenly very aware of the open doorway behind me. For a second I thought about calling Curtis, but what was I going to say? "Hey, the school is doing impressions of me over the intercom and telling me where to walk?" I grabbed my cart handle with sweaty hands and pushed it toward the gym anyway, because apparently I'm an idiot. The closer I got, the more the building felt wrong. No heater noise, no distant clicks, just my wheels squeaking and the faint hiss of wind in the glass. One of the gym doors was cracked open about an inch, the metal latch not fully catching. I knew I'd shut both earlier. I nudged the door with my shoulder, reached in, and flicked up the first row of light switches. The lamps over the near section of the court hummed to life, spilling pale light over polished wood. My abandoned dust mop lay near the free throw line, exactly where I'd left it the night of the bleacher incident. Something else was on the floor now. In the center of the court, perfectly framed by the painted circle, a set of footprints had appeared. Not shoe prints, bare feet. Each one darker than the wood around it, like water had been pressed into the planks and frozen there. They faced my end of the gym, toes pointed toward the doors in a straight line coming forward from the half-court circle and ending halfway between mid-court and the free throw line. No prints leading to them from any doorway. No streaks. Just empty floor, then steps, then nothing. I stepped inside without realizing it, hands still on the switch panel. The door eased shut behind me with a low thud. The footprints glistened faintly, like whatever made them was still fresh. I walked along the wall, keeping distance, eyes locked on the line of prints. My heart was beating so hard I could feel it in my neck. The gym was too quiet. No building ever gets that quiet unless something's wrong with your ears or everything is holding its breath. I took one more step and the bleachers clicked. One sharp metallic tick from the darkness on the far side. Then another. Then a third, slightly closer, like weight was moving along them. I stopped dead. "I'm not going over there," I said out loud, voice cracking in the huge room. The gym speakers popped on. I flinched so hard the switch panel rattled. What came out wasn't breathing this time, or the crowd noise from earlier. It was the sound of my own cartwheels on tile, amplified and looped, rolling and rolling and rolling. Underneath it, faint but there, was my own voice from earlier that night. "Curtis? Hello? Anyone there?" Chopped up and stitched together in the wrong order, like somebody had been listening and decided to play with what it collected. The footprints didn't move, but standing there, it felt like they were waiting for me to follow the line they made and step into the dark. I backed up until my heel hit the door. I didn't bother being quiet. I ripped it open and stumbled into the hallway. The instant the door swung shut, the PA cut off again. Dead silence. No echo of wheels, no chopped up words. Just the ordinary hum of the building. I went straight to the security room because I already knew if I delayed, I'd talk myself out of looking. I scrubbed the timeline back to a minute before I'd first opened the gym door. On screen, the court was empty. No mop, no footprints. Then, between one frame and the next, the prints were just there. No distortion, no glitching, no visible source. Just a clean floor, and then a line of wet bare feet leading toward where I'd been standing in real life. When my recorded self walked into frame and froze, my stomach turned. The audio on the security feed had nothing. The PA noise I'd heard in the gym didn't exist on the recording. The speakers in the little security room were silent, even as I watched myself flinch at sounds that weren't there. I left the school without clocking out. Didn't finish the floor, didn't put anything away. I just grabbed my jacket, my keys, and walked out into the snow. The parking lot was a blank white field. No footprints except the ones I made. As I unlocked my car, I looked back at the building. The gym windows upstairs were dark. In one of the third-floor windows, the history wing, I thought I saw something pale move past, like a face or a hand, but it could have been a reflection. I drove home doing 10 under the limit the whole way because my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I almost quit the next day. I wrote out a text to Curtis 3 different times and deleted it. When I actually walked into the custodial office that night, he stared at me for a second and said, "You look like hell." "Did the cameras pick anything up last night?" I asked. My voice sounded thin. He watched me for a beat too long, then sighed. "They picked up you bolting at 1:30. He leaned back in his chair. "You're not the first night guy who's had issues in there." I waited for some story, some rumor, some explanation. All he gave me was, "Do the gym first from now on, while there are still coaches grading film or kids in practice. If something tells you to go down there when you're alone, don't listen." "Something?" I pushed. He shrugged like he was already saying too much. "Buildings are like people. Some hold on to things. Doesn't mean they're gonna bite you every night. Just don't go looking for it." That was it. No big reveal, no tragic history of a kid who died in the bleachers, no priest on speed dial. I kept the job because rent didn't care what the PA said. For the next few weeks, I followed his rule. Hit the gym early, while you can still hear voices in the locker rooms and basketballs banging in the practice court next door. Nothing happened. The bleachers creaked like normal old metal. The PA only played morning announcements and bad motivational quotes. Trash stayed emptied when I emptied it. If I worked late and ended up on a hall alone, I listened hard, but the speaker stayed dead. Then, one Thursday, I realized halfway through my shift that I didn't feel watched anymore. I was stripping wax off the second floor tiles, earbuds in one ear, music low, and it hit me. The background pressure, the sense of being measured, had just thinned out, not gone completely, but distant, like whatever had been paying attention had turned its head. Nothing special happened that night. No final scare, no goodbye, no one last time echo. The school just went back to acting like a building. That's the worst part, honestly. Not the footprints or the voice or the fact that something out there was using my own words against me. It's knowing that whatever it was didn't get beaten or banished or solved. It just got bored of me. Some nights, when I lock the main entrance at 4 a.m. and walk out to the lot, I'll glance up at the gym windows. They're usually dark, throwing back the yellow of the parking lot lights like mirrors. Every once in a while, though, I swear I see the faint outline of prints on the inside of the glass, like something walked up there and pressed its wet feet against it, just to remind me it can. I don't go back in to check. And if the PA ever clicks on after midnight again, and I hear my own voice telling me where to go, I won't follow. I already did that once. Whatever was down there moved on. I'm not going to give it a reason to get curious again.